haven and a banner for freedom.
United States Ambassador to Germany, the Honorable Robert Kimmitt, and Berlin's governing mayor, the Honorable Eberhard Diepgen, also spoke of Tempelhof's place in history and of friendship, determination, and sadness. 17th Air Force Commander Major General James E. Chambers spoke of the 7350th as a beacon, a flame of freedom that burned down the wall. To express appreciation from the district mayors of the former American sector of the once divided city, Tempelhof District Mayor Wolfgang Kruger presented commemorative coins to 7350th Air Base Group Commander Colonel Gary L. Lindner. As the 24th and final commander of the 7350th at Tempelhof, Colonel Lindner closed the ceremonial inactivation with these emotionally charged comments.
We prepared to leave, knowing that the Air Force presence made a peaceful and important contribution to the survival and now prosperity of Berlin.
Today's ceremony marks the end of an era. Germany is reunited once again, and the city of Berlin is no longer divided. The work of the United States Air Force at Tempelhof Air Base is completed, and the mission done. They're going home. Reporting from Tempelhof Air Base, Germany, I'm Air Force Sergeant Tom Guerin, AFN Berlin.
Some of the recent missions flown by U.S. and other Allied aircraft against Iraqi anti-aircraft sites have taken place from Incirlik Air Base in Turkey. The commander of the Combined Task Force there, Brigadier General John Hawley, says the international cooperation within the task force is a key to its success against the Iraqis.
Coalition aircraft, to include the French F-1s and the British Jaguars, along with the U.S. Array of aircraft, have been working very well together in a well-packaged manner where we are providing air support and wild weasel support from U.S. aircraft to support the reconnaissance operations that are being conducted primarily by the F-1s and from the French Air Force and the Jaguars from the Royal Air Force. That team has been very effective in knowing where the threat was at all times, being able to track what is being done with the surface-to-air missile systems and the AAA systems that are within the area of responsibility. And I think overall we have confidence that we can continue to defend the no-fly zone and keep the Iraqi Air Force from flying in that area.
Operation Restore Hope. The name of the mission speaks for itself. While food relief and assistance is the main focus of Restore Hope, the mission also had moments when it helped restore life. Sergeant George McNamara has more.
When the ambulance pulled up to the emergency entrance at the 86th Evacuation Hospital in Mogadishu, everyone was ready to help. Case number 1 had arrived, 4-year-old Abi Futtah. The hospital's main mission is to support the United Task Force in Somalia. But Abi's case was one of life or death. The boy had a piece of corn stuck in his throat, and it wouldn't come out.
The longer this piece of corn stays in the little boy's windpipe, it's going to continue to swell, and the little boy will eventually, well, he has lost his airway already, and it has to come out.
Navy doctors tried to remove the colonel the night before, but ran into trouble. The 86th, with its deployable medical system and surgical staff, was Abi's best and perhaps last hope.
This is the original one that came in with. See it? Oh, yeah. Look at that. Yeah. And that was the problem.
Colonel Kavanaugh explains the situation to Abi's father.
We're going to open his mouth, and we'll try to reach down and pull that out.
From Schweinfurt.
Scouts made contact.
This Battle Command training program is a great opportunity for the Army to test its overall command and control procedures from battalion to division levels.
My assessment is that it allows the division and the division commanders to make those decisions that he would make just as he would make them if this were.
Look at that. Yeah, and that was the problem.
Colonel Kavanaugh explains the situation to Abi's father.
We're going to open his mouth, and we'll try to reach down and pull that out.
From Schweinfurt.
Scouts made contact.
This Battle Command training program is a great opportunity for the Army to test its overall command and control procedures from battalion to division levels.
My assessment is that it allows the division and the division commanders to make those decisions that he would make just as he would make them if this were a real war. And I watched General Keller work. I watched myself, the G3, the other staff officers, and I would say that it was very realistic. The decisions, the thought processes were made as if there were real soldiers out there executing the missions we were assigning.
BCTP planners come from the Combined Arms Center at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. It is their job to provide the battle scenarios and a world-class Op-4 to create the necessary elements for realistic training.
And I'd stress that it's not a report card. It's really the unit looking at itself based on the data that we help them develop and that we help them analyze, and they determine for themselves the lessons that they're going to draw out of it, and their own value, or their own lessons that they take away from it.
Okay, 1-6 Scouts report an MRB moving to the northwest.
Warfighter stress and pressure is very real. The evaluation begins at the battalion level. And tomorrow night we will visit 2nd Battalion, 37th Armor, as the war begins. From Con Barracks in Schweinfurt, Special Scout Speaks reporting for AFN News.
The Abrams Building has been around for more than 60 years. In our last report on the Abrams series, 5th Corps' Diana Dower reports on the ongoing projects and renovations that help keep the Abrams Building standing as solid as it was when it was first constructed.
At the moment, the Abrams Building is undergoing a lot of renovation. The roofs and windows of Abrams and the Terrace Club are constantly worked on. Frankfurt's Department of Engineering and Housing take care of these things. But if a certain wing needs to be renovated, there are other procedures.
Any individual projects to do renovations in any of the queues or any of the different staff areas are up to that staff function to initiate. They would give us a 4283 work order, submit the work order to us, and then pending approval of that work order, we could start design or do any action that they needed for the building.
The paternosters are the main focus for renovations right now.
As it turns out, the German government has decided that paternosters have to be removed from all buildings in Germany by, I believe it's 1994, with the exception of this building, where they will remain as part of the historical monument that this structure is.
The Abrams Building and Terrace Club stands today as a remnant of war in time. What was once called an architectural monstrosity is now praised for being the premier architectural example of the German Bauhaus era. The two buildings have stood for more than 60 years as testament to the principle that architecture can both be efficient and pleasing to the eye. In Frankfurt, Diana Dower, 5th Corps Public Affairs Office for AFN News.
When the Magic Flute Choir came to shape from Zagreb, Croatia, the idea was to get away from the stresses of living in a potential civil war, see some sights in Belgium, and give a free concert in return for the hospitality of the host community. Sergeant Ken Davis found out that when their bus pulled out of shape, they left behind more than anyone expected.
As the last of the bags were loaded on the bus, the families of the Shape community said goodbye to the friends they made. The children from Zagreb only stayed for 3 days, and much of their time was spent away from their host families, traveling to Brussels and Bruges, and of course the ever-popular lunch stop at McDonald's. But the time they spent at Shape was special for the community. It gave Shape a personal look at the people of Croatia, outside of their television screen, straight into their home.
My friends, they're just exactly like everybody else. Very friendly, very open, very loving.
We took them into our homes to provide them accommodations and meals and to learn something of our life also.
We watch TV. We basically like the same kinds of music and stuff like that.
Beatles. YouTube. Yeah.
Guns N' Roses. You too. What kind of music? Metallica. Metallica.
They hope to route their trip home through Germany and into Salzburg, Austria, where they'll visit the Mozart Museum. They expect a safe trip into Zagreb, and after they arrive, they'll try to arrange another free concert for the members of Shape's 196 Station Hospital, that is TDY in Croatia. Air Force Sergeant Ken Davis, AFN News.
Left-wing demonstrators fought police yesterday after a peaceful candlelight protest against neo-Nazism in the eastern German city of Cottbus. According to a Reuters report, about 100 militant left-wingers threw stones at police after a rally by 10,000 people against right-wing violence. 2 policemen were injured, and several police nationals are facing the same uncertainties as their American counterparts. In the first of 2 reports, 21st TAECOM's Gail McCabe explains how local national employees in the Kaiserslautern area are receiving some special help.
Local national employees are the backbone of the civilian workforce. Within Germany, over 20% of USR's LNs work in the Kaiserslautern area. By the fiscal end of 1993, approximately 2,300 of Kaiserslautern's local national employees will no longer have a job.
The drawdown of forces in USR means the elimination of civilian jobs. It's a painful transition. The majority of those jobs are held by local nationals. The state of Rhineland-Pfalz, which counts the U.S. military as one of its largest employers, is making steps to make sure that that transition is as smooth as possible.
All the help that they can get, we encourage them to go seek it. And EBIS is one of the ways that you can find employment.
Insofern kann man das alles nochmal recht theoretisch abhandeln.
EBIS is contracted and funded by the state of Rhineland-Pfalz. Their job is to provide outplacement assistance for local nationals facing unemployment. The sessions focus on what it takes to find work in a state where jobs are hard to come by. Add to that the very different hiring structures of the local labor market.
The major goal here is to get a smoothly transition from working from the force here to private firms.
Some of us have never written applications before, and a lot of the system has changed in the past. So, yes, it makes it a lot easier.
An initial budget of 330,000 Deutschmark is set aside for the EBIS program, which is expected to cover 40 weeks of classes, with additional money allocated as needed. In Kaiserslautern, Gail McCabe, 21st Take-On, AFN News.
In our next report, Gail gives us a look at what German industries are doing to aid in the shift from government work to private industry. There's nothing as refreshing as a cold drink of water. Whether it comes bottled or from the tap, water is something many of us take for granted. But for military members deployed in Mogadishu, drinkable water is essential to the mission, and a fresh supply is as close as the nearest ocean. Sergeant Clay Cogsdale reports.
It's hot, dry, and if the sun doesn't burn you, the wind will. Just the thought of working in a climate like Mogadishu would send many to the nearest swimming hole. That's why when the Air Force landed at Mogadishu Airport, it brought along the technology to purify its own drinking water. It's called reverse osmosis.
The way it works essentially is we stick a pump into the ocean, suck out the water, and run it through the ROPU, reverse osmosis water purification unit. And after a period of cycles, it comes out as very potable, very clean drinking water. We use it both for drinking as well as for sanitation purposes, for shower shades and latrine.
Major Chuck Smiley is Chief of Operations for the 823rd Civil Engineering Squadron, better known as Red Horse. The 823rd operates and maintains the ROPU, the Reverse Osmosis Water Purification Unit. This unit is one of 3 water purification systems operating at the Mogadishu compound.
The Marines and the Navy have set up their own water purification units, but to ensure that we have a dedicated source of water for the Air Force people here, it's the only one in town. We put about 14,000 gallons of water per day purified.
This operation runs about 20 hours a day and purifies, on the average, more than 600 gallons of water an hour. In other words, there's more than enough water to go around.
That we give not only to the Air Force, but also some Marine units and some foreign nations as well.
In the opening days of Operation Restore Hope, water came only in bottles. But now drinking water is as plentiful as, well, the ocean. Sergeant Clay Cogsdale.
Stakes arrived at a new destination in several pieces or didn't arrive at all. Increased manning at the Travel Management Office is just one of the ways that your household shipment should be completed without any problems.
Well, we've got manning lined up now where it is virtually not a problem to have a representative from the Traffic Management Office at every household during the pack-out. They're not equipped to be there for the duration of your pack-out. They will be available. That is, they'll be able to stop in at least once to ask if you have any concerns, or you're having any problems.
It's very important that someone be available for the pack-out. Stay with the movers. This isn't to imply that they aren't trustworthy. It's just another precaution to make sure that your valuables are treated and prepared the way you want.
It's very important that you're with the packers and you're watching what they're doing. If you're married, have your spouse there with you or have a friend to keep an eye on the packers so that you know, if you have 4 or 5 packers in your house, it's best to have a little bit of supervision going on.
The actual process of packing out occurs over a 2-day period. 1 day for packing individual items and another for putting those items into crates. We'll discover more of that process in tomorrow's report.
2 Croatians were loaded onto a C-9 aircraft based out of Rhine-Main, Germany. The patients, all men, including one 14-year-old boy, were in stable condition, mostly leg and foot injuries. Once on the ground at Ramstein Air Base, they were transported to Landstuhl's Army Regional Medical Center for 1 overnight before departing for the U.S. The humanitarian airlift marks the beginning of a series of flights involving the U.S. Air Force.
We were requested to make this flight by the Department of State, the Bureau for Refugee Affairs. It is being funded by the Department of Defense Global Affairs Office, and it is part of our relief effort for the victims of the conflict in former Yugoslavia.
Once stateside, DoD involvement ends, and the International Organization of Migration takes over. The patients will undergo reconstructive surgery in civilian hospitals that have offered the free medical care. The victims will be flown back to their homeland via commercial air. At Ramstein Air Base, Germany, Linda Frost.
Whether you're a military move expert or if your next PCS is a first-time experience, there are important things to keep in mind. Sergeant Gary Piccarello reports on packing and shipping your household goods in Part 2 of our special report.
On last night's report, you heard that it's important to stay with the packers as they prepare your household goods for shipping. You also heard that the Traffic Management Office has the manning to oversee your pack-out. But there's a misconception of what exactly the movers have the responsibility of. Logically, every item you own should be checked by you, but certain things are not considered priority for shipping.
For example, stereo components, VCRs, televisions, they are required to put the make, model, and serial number on the inventory, but items such as clothing, albums, and things of this nature, they're not required to individually list every article. In this case, it's good to have your own records.
There are alternatives to consider. Highly pilferable items, CDs are a classic example, can just as easily be shipped ahead of time to the P.O. box of your next duty location. The important thing to remember is that a checklist of every item packed can save you a lot of problems in the long run.
The primary document is the household goods inventory. The carrier is required by regulation to complete the inventory during any pack-out. This is the most important of all your documents because this is a document that you'll need should you have to file a claim at destination for loss or damage.
Despite the precautions and built-in safety measures, the whole process of shipping your goods remains a hit-or-miss operation. For some, it goes off without a hitch. For others, it's an experience to remember.
Well, they just started, but they're doing a very good job as far as packing out. They're checking everything, taking all our model and serial numbers off of valuable items. And they're pretty much staying on the bottom floor with us, and they're asking us to go with them to certain rooms, so there's only the 2 of them, so we're able to keep an eye on everything that's going on.
After your goods are wrapped the first day, they're crated the second day, brought to TMO, and prepared for the long airlift to your next assignment. Proper planning ahead of time and lots of patience can make your next move an easy one for you and your household goods. Reporting from AFN San Vito, I'm Air Force Sergeant Gary Piccarello.
Alpine Resorts reported snowfall last week, with some areas above 1,800 meters reporting up to and over 1 meter of new flakes. Good to very good conditions are reported above 1,500 meters. Below 1,000 meters, the conditions vary day to day but are getting help from man-made snow. Resorts in Austria and Switzerland are reporting improved conditions. Spokesman Barb Lutz says the mail is moving smoothly to Zagreb, and with the help of postal officials on the ground there, the mail time is less than 2 days. In Somalia, there are no European postal employees on the ground, but the mail transit time is 7 to 10 days. The U.S. European Command has been designated a World War II commemorative command by the Department of Defense. A special commemorative flag was presented to SINC-UCOM General John Shalikashvili, marking the event. UCOM World War II Commemoration Coordinator, Air Force Major Darrell Jones, says some 15 major events are being commemorated in 3 continents from North Africa to England. Entire division. An essential link for success on the battlefield is the brigade. It is here that critical synchronization decisions are made. Specialist Scott Speaks reports.
The brigade commander and his staff serve as an integral link between a division headquarters and the battlefield. For them, warfighter provides extremely valuable training. There is no simulation here. Decisions are real.
For our purposes, we don't know that there's a sim center. We're talking to our maneuver battalions maneuvering across a piece of terrain depicted on the map here behind me, and we have no indication from this location that the data is actually being provided by a simulation.
The brigade applies many combat multipliers to the battlefield. Correct and timely decisions are essential.
What we try and do in the command post is synchronize all the combat multipliers within the Battle Force Brigade Combat Team. You may have heard the combat multipliers referred to as the bosses. You have maneuver, intelligence, engineer assets, fire support. What we try to do is get the biggest bang for the buck so the Brigade Combat Team can support the division plan to its fullest.
For training to be challenging and stressful, the enemy must be real and doctrinally accurate. This is the mission of the world-class OPFOR from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
And our mission is to doctrinally portray various opposing forces to allow the blue forces that oppose them to fight a doctrinally correct foe that is allowed to win on the battlefield, and thereby give them a challenging opponent to stress their training, to stress their units and their procedures.
For the brigade staff, nothing beats it. We can't tell the difference between having a man out there with a computer moving little electrons and the battalions out there maneuvering their 58 tanks.
The division commander is the final authority for many battlefield decisions. The division's awesome responsibilities and how warfighter evaluates its process is our story tomorrow night. From Con Barracks in Schweinfurt, Special Scott Speaks reporting for AFN News.
The Clinton administration is drafting a plan that would use decommissioned military bases and other federal facilities to house the homeless. Housing Secretary Henry Cisneros stated that it's critical, as we wind down the military machinery of the Cold War, that we make every effort to make that conversion to those most needy. Not every military evolution is designed to strengthen U.S. warfighting capability. As Specialist Jose Velasquez reports, at least one annual exercise is meant to build stronger bonds between us and the Panama.
Whether you're here for 2 weeks or 6 months, the standards that you set, very, very important.
Fuertes Caminos 93, a joint Panamanian-American nation-building exercise, kicked off in January in the province of Chiriquí. An annual exercise, Fuertes Caminos, which means strong roads, has become synonymous with friendship and goodwill between countries. General George Jawan.
Today we celebrate the 4th year of Fuertes Caminos exercises in Panama. The 4th year of Panamanian workers and United States military working side by side to build infrastructure throughout the provinces of Panama. To do so strengthens democracy, promotes liberty, and provides a better life for the people. And this year promises to be the best ever.
National Guard and Reserve groups will make up the majority of the American presence in the exercise. And this first group to arrive is proud of their part in Fuertes Caminos 93.
The road coming up here when we first got here was treacherous. It was terrible. They can't get their stuff to market, and this is going to be great for them. Get their produce out, improve the economy.
The people are very friendly. Every place we go, there's plenty of work to do, so the guys are keeping busy, and the time's going quick.
Amongst the distinguished guests was Panamanian President Guillermo Endara and the First Lady of Panama, who took some time to sit with the children. On this, the opening day of Fuertes Caminos 93, the smiles on the faces of the children and the warmth and hospitality of this special place makes it clear that the friendship between Panama and America has never been stronger. Specialist Jose Velasquez, SCN News.
A row broke out in Germany today over a television series starring a rude West Berliner who hates East Germans as lazy good-for-nothings. Reacting to the first showing of the program last night, politicians called for the weekly soap opera to be scrapped as it threatened to divide recently reunited Germany. The show, Motzki, started with the old East German national anthem and then put a film from 1989 into reverse to rebuild the Berlin Wall and send East Germaners back behind the wall in their Trabant cars. The state-owned station WDR said 8.4 million people watched the premiere of the show.
Former war-torn Yugoslavia region, a winter clothing drive was started. The 7th Weather Squadron, along with some of AFN's affiliate stations, collected clothes to send to the refugees. Help for the drive came from everywhere, with schools getting involved and many organizations acting as collection points. Here's some of the comments by those who helped with the operation.
It was a good project because it showed people who had more than they need to give to people who didn't have what they needed. And I enjoyed doing the project, and we got a lot of clothes out of it. I think it's a real good cause. I think anything in any kind of humanitarian effort is very noble, and I'm real glad to be a part of it.
Well, it's just that I know that we have so much here, and they don't have anything, and it'd just be nice if our whole school could get involved and give the things that we don't need to them who need everything. And we just...
For me, I had a chance to take in the great scenery and practice my German with my Deutsch-speaking driver, Han. My least favorite part was seeing those rest stops go by, only to find out we could only stop every 4 hours.
The trip was interesting despite the minor inconveniences, but the most nerve-wracking moment came at the border crossings. In Austria, we were delayed for an hour and a half because the border guard was tired of, quote, the Croatians getting things for nothing. In Slovenia and Croatia, they were happy to see us, but more than a few packs of cigarettes were passed into the table for the necessary paperwork. For political and safety reasons, we left the camera in the truck at the borders.
The next day, we finally reached the bridge onto the island of Crick, where I had time to wave to Willie and Celinda. The bumps were pretty rough on my stomach, but even worse on my camera, it knocked the color right out of it.
As the refugees rapidly unloaded the trucks, we had a chance to ask Willie what he felt about this particular load.
That marks nichts up that American flaws or some other people is, you know, I drive for every people. When he got the help, I bring him.
We soon found that dropping the clothes off wasn't the end. There was much more. We could see it in the faces of the people.
In Croatia for AFN News, Sergeant Celinda Larrabee
and Airman Tricia Hearn.
Tomorrow night, we'll take an in-depth look at the Croatian Red Cross. Tech Sergeant Celinda Larrabee.
But the atmosphere is anything but tranquil. Refugees, orphans, the raped and battered children, and the unnerving effects of war rudely violate the peaceful countryside. The town of Punat is one home to the Croatian Red Cross. From this center, supplies are collected for the refugees from various countries and distributed as quickly as possible. Marja is the executive secretary of the Croatian Red Cross. It's not an easy job at the best of times, but now it's an overwhelming and crucial job.
They come, mothers and children, to us. The first refugees was 53, and so begin our work. Because we must help this woman and the children.
The Red Cross struggles to survive. Shipments of clothes and food arrive regularly, but transportation to the outlying battle-torn villages is the major problem.
We have difficult about transport because we're doing not only for us in Punat, then we work for all people which need help here in Croatian when it's possible and in Bosnian.
There are many refugees on the island of Krk. All are displaced, deported, and victims of a war where they were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Without the Croatian Red Cross, there would be no hope, and quite frankly, little hope of survival. Airman Tricia Hearn, AFN News.
The Arabian Gulf.
The men and women of AWACS use sophisticated radar and communication systems to keep an eye on the Iraqi Air Force. Looking deep into the skies over Iraq, the people assigned to AWACS watch for airborne threats, Iraqi aircraft penetrations into the no-fly zone. Their job gives Saddam Hussein something to worry about.
He knows we're up here, and he knows that we can spot anything he sends up to us. He tried that in December when we shot down one of his aircraft. So he knows we're a threat to him, and he really doesn't try to fool with us too much because he knows we can see everything he's doing.
Watching Iraqi Air Force activities and controlling friendly aircraft in the Arabian Gulf region is nothing new for the AWACS crews. The men and women have been working in this region for a very long time.
These people that fly in the AWACS, unlike a lot of other units, they've been doing this since the very first days of Desert Shield. We were among the very first people here, and when the war was over, our mission continued.
The AWACS crews work about 16 hours a day on average, some 14 hours in the air and 2 hours on the ground. The job is tough, but it's something the crews say they enjoy.
I'm glad to be here doing my job. It definitely gives you a good feeling when you know that what you're doing actually means something.
You know, I came into the military to serve my country and do the same thing for them that, you know, my predecessors have done. You know, it's really not a 9-to-5 job. A lot of people like to think of it that way, but we're on call 24 hours a day when you come to think of it.
Airborne warning and control system aircraft continue to fly 24 hours a day in this troubled region. It's a vital part of coalition efforts to keep Saddam in his place, literally. Staff Sergeant Jim Frost, Air Force Television News, in the Arabian Gulf region.
A second UN convoy set out to take food and medical supplies to starving Muslims in eastern Bosnia today. Rebel Serbs have refused to let humanitarian trucks through their line. Another convoy has been waiting since Sunday to deliver aid. Meanwhile, in Sarajevo, mortar shells hit the area throughout the day yesterday, and the city's last operating bakery was forced to shut down after it ran out of fuel to make bread. Western officials have now placed the death toll in Bosnia at 18,000 since the war began 10 months ago. When the Air Force began airlifting patients from Zagreb, Croatia, the responsibility ultimately landed on the 2nd Air Evacuation Squadron based at Rhein-Main Air Base, Germany. Sergeant Clay Cogsdale reports the airlift isn't the first humanitarian assignment for those seasoned flyers.
The 2nd Air Evacuation Squadron is responsible for air medical evacuation in Europe, parts of the Middle East, and Africa. Considering the territory, the squadron has earned a reputation of flying some extraordinary missions. Last year, the squadron flew former hostages Terry Anderson and Joseph Sicipio out of Damascus, Syria. But still, the airlift of the Bosnian patients from Zagreb, Croatia, came as a surprise.
But to go into a country that 2 years ago we would have been flying bombing missions against and suddenly be bringing people out, as we were descending into the airfield, I'm sitting there thinking, this really can't be real. We really can't be doing this. And then the doors opened, and certainly we were doing that.
It's a type of mission that most of the military people who participate in it enjoy it very much, and they are terribly effective.
Most missions of the 2nd AES are flown in specially equipped C-9s of the 55th Aeromedical Airlift Squadron, also based at Rhein-Main.
As a team, we get the 2 squadrons together, and there's no mission in Europe that's too big or too small for us to handle.
Although the humanitarian airlift of patients from the war-torn Balkans is funded for bi-weekly flights for the remainder of the fiscal year, organizers say they hope the need for the flights will end sooner than the money. Sergeant Clay Cogsdale, Air Force Television News, Ramstein Air Base, Germany.
It looks like we'll all be paying more for our daily newspaper starting March 1st. Stars and Stripes announced over the weekend that the price on all papers, excluding Sunday, will go up to 50 cents per issue. The Sunday paper will still cost the same. Circulation manager Jim Wysocki told AFN News why the price is going up.
Well, the reason the price has gone up in the paper is because in the past the bookstore sales have subsidized the newspaper operation. And currently it costs us 65 cents a copy to produce and distribute a copy of Stars and Stripes. The drawdown, the value of the American dollar over here has also impacted the profitability of the newspaper. Therefore, we have to increase the price of the newspaper.
Stripes officials also told AFN News that while the newsstand prices will go up,
it was the Marine's Marine. Everywhere he went Monday in Wiesbaden, Germany, fans gathered to wait their turn to talk to the friendly and accommodating star. McRaney sat for over an hour at the Heineberg PX, signing autographs and shaking hands of over 2